All right, thank you for watching this video. This is Joshua Kenny Greenwood. I'm the senior pastor here at the Empowerment Center Church, churchfreedom.org, and testimonytoday.org. And today I'm going to be talking to you. This is actually part 2 of our training video related to the church establishment affidavit and why it is absolutely critical for you to have a church establishment affidavit and a corporation sole for your church in this season. In this video, I'm actually going to be using my own church establishment affidavit that we just recently signed because we just moved to a completely new state that has one of the very, very last corporation sole laws in the United States. In this part 2 of this video, you're going to see the prescribed First Amendment to our church establishment affidavit. If you didn't get to watch the first video, just go back in our video archive and you can watch it there on our YouTube channel. But in this video, what we're going to be talking about is the assignment of the office of overseer to the Empowerment Center Church and exemption from filing annual informational returns to the Internal Revenue Service, mandatory exemption status as recognized in federal law, declarations regarding various religious freedoms of expression and speech, and declaration of jurisdictional authorities within the church. Now, this is ultra critical. Number 1, you'll see here the assignment of the limited and isolated corporation sole title and office of overseer. Now, this is really important because, see, you need to understand that under every law in the United States, and this is why that gay marriage ruling by the U.S. Supreme Court was so important and why it is devastating to America's churches, and where this church establishment affidavit and the corporation sole stand as the last legal line of defense for Christian churches in the United States, is because you need to understand that churches are no longer churches when you become incorporated. They're considered creatures of the state. Those are not my words. That comes directly from a ruling back in 1906, I believe, under Hale versus Henkel, where the U.S. Supreme Court Chief Justice Melville Fuller, he was the one where the courts decided that every incorporation is considered a creature of the state. And so when you become incorporated, when your church becomes fully incorporated, the church ceases to be a church. You are no longer even legally considered a church. You're now legally considered under federal law a religious incorporated entity. So you're a religious organization that has been incorporated as a creature of the state. So you're not even underneath the law 508c1a. You're now underneath the law 501c3, which means that your church is now underneath 100% the jurisdiction of what they call gender discrimination laws. So you're underneath the very laws that are destroying and ripping the church apart at the seams right now. So you're not protected at all. But if you have a corporation sole, you are protected, and here's why. Because before you create the corporation sole, you have to first establish the church, and it's established through this church establishment affidavit. So in this prescribed First Amendment, what it does is it assigns the office of the corporate sole, which is the incorporated entity. That's your 501c3. But instead of the entire church coming underneath of its jurisdiction, you can see here it is an assignment of a limited office within. It's an isolated, limited office within the church, not the church itself. So your 501c3 is not blanketed over the entire organization. It's only limited to one isolated, singular office within the church. So that's why it says, it is hereby appointed that, I'm going to use me as an example, Joshua Kenny Greenwood, as acting senior pastor of the Empowerment Center Church, shall now be given an additional office and title of overseer for the Empowerment Center Church. The purposes and limitations of the authorities granted this isolated corporation sole office and title position within the church is to solely manage and distribute church-related financial assets and holdings and act as an individual and natural person in all church-related financial transactions. The title of overseer shall now associate with the other title and position of senior pastor and shall be a separate office unto itself. The title and office of overseer serves no other function, nor has any other additional authorities outside of managing and distributing church-related financial assets, holdings and act as a natural person in all church-related financial transactions. This means that in this church, I have two roles. I have two offices that I hold coherently, okay? So I have one office where I operate on Sunday morning, or if I'm putting out emails, or if I'm putting out sermons online, I'm operating under the office of the senior pastorship of the Empowerment Center Church, and not the corporation soul, not the limited office. In fact, you'll even hear me, or you'll read in my emails down at the very bottom, you'll see that I'm acting under the authority as the senior pastor, not acting underneath the authority of the corporation soul. Now that's really important, because that means as the senior pastor, guess what you can do? You now have absolute true freedom of speech. This means you can endorse any political candidate for office that's running for office. You can violate what other pastors would be afraid for 501c3. They think they're violating 501c3 regulations. In this case, we're not violating 501c3 because we're not operating underneath of its jurisdiction. So this means you have true religious freedom of speech. This means you can say whatever you want, whenever you want it. And you don't have to be worrying about the IRS coming and knocking down your door and doing the whole SWAT team, number and trying to get all your books and everything else, because you're not operating from that office. You've isolated that office. Then it gives, number 2, the mandatory exemption from filing annual informational returns. And that is pursuant to 26 U.S.C. 6033A 1 through 3. Now, if you want a copy of this affidavit, you can you can download our book, you can go to our website, you can go to churchfreedom.org, or you can go download our book from corporationsoulbook.com. And you can download all the information right from those websites, and it gives you every specified link of why the corporation soul and why the church is mandatorily exempted from filing annual informational returns. Now we go here to number 3, which is the declaration of jurisdictional authorities within the church. It says, "We the declarants, Joshua Kinney and all of the church members, declare and affirm that there are many titles and offices held within the Empowerment Center Church when teaching or giving instructions to the congregation or the public." Okay, Joshua Kinney Greenwood will only be acting in the position, title, and office of senior pastor, and not the office of the corporation soul known as the Empowerment Center Overseer. The title and office of the overseer of the corporation soul shall be limited to overseeing the church's financial assets, obligations, titles to real property, titles to vehicles owned by the church, and shall be the religious order within the church that is directly responsible for conducting the exclusively religious activities on behalf of the church. This is very, very critical. This affidavit is already outlining the jurisdictional responsibilities of the corporation soul. So that way there's no doubt. So that way, if anybody tried to drag you into court, it's already been affirmed under the penalties of perjury that every single activity that is conducted underneath of that office has already been outlined, that it has been conducted underneath the office and underneath the auspice of you being the senior pastor of that church, and not being underneath the position of the corporation soul. And then it gives the authorization, and as you can see here, this is our affidavit. It has been signed under the penalties of perjury by every single party member, by the senior elders within the church, including myself and Pastor Brandy of our associate church down in California. This is very, very important. This lawfully establishes everything that you're doing. So in the next video, in the third video, we're going to be going into the successorship of the church. We're going to be going into whom the church elects to be the successor of the corporation soul and elects to be the secretary of the corporation soul. So if you have any questions whatsoever, you can feel free. You can go directly to our website. Go to churchfreedom.org. That website will literally answer just about every single question you can possibly have. You can email us at support@churchfreedom.org or overseer@churchfreedom.org, and we'll answer every single question that comes across. Thank you very much. Watch our next training video, and God bless.